A really good place to go for theological insight and wisdom is the comic strips, and probably one of the best is Peanuts. Charles Schulz was a devout Christian, and often you would see godly wisdom in some of those strips. I remember one in particular with Charlie Brown and Lucy. Of course, they were always kind of antagonists. And Lucy, she says to Charlie Brown, you know, there's one thing I don't understand. I don't understand love. And Charlie Brown says, well, who does? It's a really difficult issue. And she says, well, try to explain it to me, Charlie Brown. And he says, you can't explain love. I mean, I can show you a painting or a poem or a book, but I can't explain love. And, of course, Lucy's persistent. She says, just try, Charlie Brown. So he says, all right, because Charlie Brown can't ever say no to Lucy. So he says, all right, let's say I'm walking along, and I see this cute, beautiful little girl, and she goes, wait a minute. Why does a little girl have to be cute? I mean, couldn't she have freckles and a big nose? Explain that. So Charlie Brown's, all right. So he says, let me start again. Let's say I'm walking around, and I see this little girl with a great big nose. Again, she interrupts, I didn't say it was a great big nose. Well, Charlie Brown is rather exasperated by now, and so he says, not only can't you explain love, you can't even talk about it. Well, we're going to talk about it. But words aren't enough. Well, at least not quite enough to explain love. As we heard in the children's message, we need to look at the lives and the actions of people who are loving. We're on this series called Love Is, and we started last week with Love is Patient. If you were here, let me just ask you, how difficult is patience? It's really hard sometimes, isn't it? So I thought, this week it gets a little easier. Love is kind, and I thought, well, maybe we can do that. It's not quite as difficult. We talked about random acts of kindness, and we do that. A lot of you, I see you at the Jewel or whatever, and you open the door for the person who's coming in. It's an act of kindness. I heard about shoveling snow. An act of kindness. By the way, if you want to do that at my house, I would appreciate it. That's okay. It's an act of kindness. Or when you find that your neighbors have left their garbage cans out, you get home a little earlier than they do, and so you just bring that up to the garage or whatever. A random act of kindness. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe we can do this, and kindness equates to love. But I got to thinking a little bit more, and I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, but I would suggest that we tend to underestimate things. Do you ever do that, where you think something's going to be easier than it is? It looks easy. So let's say your dishwasher breaks. All right, your dishwasher breaks at home, and you watch the YouTube video, and he fixes it in what, like 5 minutes? Nothing to it. Easy peasy, you can do this as well. And so then you get out there and you take everything apart, and 5 minutes becomes 5 hours. And not just the time, but you've got all these parts, even though you put it all back together and there's still some parts missing, and you're thinking maybe my dishwasher doesn't really need all of these parts. And it doesn't work. You got a big mess, and then you've got to hire somebody anyway. Because we tend to underestimate things. Or what about pickleball? Any pickleball players? Yeah, I thought it's easy, right? Pickleball, I've seen 80-year-olds out on the pickleball court. How hard can it be? Tiny court, little wiffle ball. Then you get out there and the ball's whizzing at you, and you try to bend over, and my knees just don't do that anymore, and you're sore the next day in places that you never thought you could ever be sore in. The point is, we underestimate things, and we really have a tendency to underestimate how hard love is. There are some things we say we love that don't disappoint us. Like, I love tacos. I don't think I've ever been disappointed by a taco. Or maybe you love puppies or bunnies or kittens, but people tend to disappoint us. Like our children. You know, they're growing up and they don't eat their vegetables. Yeah. Don't go to bed on time, disappointing. Want another story, just one more story, Dad. Won't go to sleep. Or maybe they talk back, disappointing. Then they grow up, and maybe even more disappointing, they don't go to the college that you chose for them. Or maybe choose the profession that you thought that they should follow, or worse yet, they don't follow the values that you set for them. And the reverse is true also. Parents disappoint children. Dad says, I'm going to be home at 5 o'clock and we're going to go out in the backyard and we're going to play catch. But then there's a meeting, telephone call, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Dad gets home and he's too tired. Disappointing. Or you make a promise. This Saturday, and we're all going to go to the water park. But then again, something comes up. Disappointing. And not just family, friends. Friends disappoint you. They have a different idea about what is important, and they don't support your idea at school or in the neighborhood. Or they gossip. Yeah. Talk about you behind your back. Disappointing. And then what about God? God disappoints us. How many times have we prayed? And we pray and we pray and we pray and nothing seems to happen. Is God even listening? Or we have this whole string of failures. Painful. Surely God could have prevented that. And we're disappointed. Either in his power or his love or both. It's hard to love when you're disappointed. Now, if anybody should be disappointed, it would be God, wouldn't it? In us? How often do we break his commands? We don't listen to his word. I'll just go through the 10 commandments. Take his name in vain. Maybe when you're trying to put the dishwasher back together. Disappointed. Have other idols? Things that are more important. He's not number one in your life. Certainly disappointed. Don't observe the Sabbath with worship. Oh, we ought to be worshiping every day because God is so great. He deserves our praise, but one day a week maybe. And we've got other things. He's disappointed. Or when we don't stand up in the face of evil. Disappointed. And certainly when we don't love others like he loves us. So no one ought to be more disappointed than God is with us, which makes his love for us, his kindness, that much more amazing. We have this great verse, and yet God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still, and we are still sinners, Christ died for us. When Paul writes love is patient and love is kind, it doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, doesn't keep a record of wrongs. It's not just a quaint little saying. It's not just fodder for a wedding sermon. It's not just random acts of kindness. Paul's talking about Christ's love for us. He doesn't just say, I love you, but his life and his actions explain what love truly is. The gospel for today, the last part, I think are as good of words as there are, but it's really the actions behind it that show us what love is. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke," that thing that goes around the oxen, "and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your soul." And really that means every part of your being. Physical rest, emotional rest, spiritual and eternal rest. "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Does that verse ever bother you? When Jesus says that my yoke, the one that I give you, is easy? Is life easy? Are there ever any burdens? Do you have weight on your shoulders sometimes? And yet Jesus says it's easy. What he's saying is that he has fitted the yoke perfectly. Now, you probably couldn't see in Mrs. Robinson's picture about the yoke that goes on the oxen. It's a wooden frame. It's like a harness. And it goes around the neck of those oxen. And the farmer or the carpenter would measure the oxen. How tall are they? How wide are they? What's the distance between each of their shoulders? And then he would craft this device to perfectly fit over the two oxen. So it wouldn't chafe, and it wouldn't pull too hard. It would be just right for that pair. So that's why our yoke is easy, because Jesus is the craftsman. He knows everything about you. He measures you. And he says, I am going to create this yoke, this pairing, so that it will be as easy as possible on you. And that's because he's our partner. He's the one who does the heavy lifting. He's the one who takes the burdens on his own shoulders. And that's why it's light. It begins with the burden of sin, which is the greatest burden, because sin leads to death, and it ruins our relationship with God. So something needed to be done, and that was where the cross comes in. And Jesus went and he took all of those sins, all of those ways we disappoint the Lord and one another, and he put them to death there on the cross. But not just sin, but all of its consequences, including death, which is why we look forward to an eternity with our God. And not just sin and death, but also the guilt and the shame that goes with our disappointments of God and others. He took all of that, and it wasn't just thrust on him, but Jesus did it willingly. Now here's the point of the whole thing. Jesus solicits our burdens. Think about that. He says, bring it all on. You're disappointed with others, give it to me. You're worried about a sin, give it to me. You're feeling guilty about something that you didn't do as a parent, you know you should have done, give it to me. All of it. I want it all so I can take it. So then you, now being free of all of those burdens, the guilt, the worry, the shame, all of it, now you can bear the burdens of others. And those random acts of kindness that you do, those small things, opening the door, shoveling the driveway for a neighbor, taking the garbage up, it might seem small to you, but for the other person it might be life-changing. When they see that you are kind, they learn that their life can be easier. You know, I want to end with this. There's a quote here in your bulletin. Do you know where this came from? Probably not. It seems like, it's a random kind of a quote. This came from the 2nd century, from a bishop in the church by the name of Tertullian. You probably don't remember that name, but look at the quote. He said, "The loving kindness of God has changed our lives, and that loving kindness has the ability to change the world." Now, why did he say that? In the 2nd century, there was a lot of persecution of the church. The Christians were called, it's a Greek word, it sounds a lot like Christ, Christani. It meant Christ people. But a lot of the Christians in those days, they were called something else. They were called Crestani. Crestani sounds a lot alike. The Christ people, but Crestani meant the kindness people. And Tertullian said that a lot of the world, the pagans, the unbelievers, they began calling the Christians Crestani, the kindness people, because they noticed their kindness first. Wouldn't it be great if that's what our neighbors saw first? Even before they know that you are a Christ follower, that you are a Christani, a Christ person, and they would first see you as a kindness person. And then they might even begin to ask, why are you always so nice? Why are you always so good? Why are you so kind? Why do you open the door and shovel the snow and carry my groceries and look after my house? Because kindness lives in you. And that kindness is named Jesus Christ. Wouldn't it be great if the world equated Christians with kindness? And wouldn't it be great then if they would begin to ask why you're so nice? And you could point them to the cross. Not just a random act, but something that Jesus intentionally did. Carrying all of your burdens of sin and guilt and shame. Offering that forgiveness, making your burden light, so you could carry the burden of others. Wouldn't that be great? We have a great video coming up